So before you watch this video, I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to be showing you actual examples of how I would tune a vocal in this video and how you can actually tune a vocal in a way that is not over aggressive like Rick talks about in this video. Before you go drop comments just bashing me without even watching the video and just destroying me because, you know, you're a huge Rick fan, and which is fine because again, I've watched Rick's videos and I like a lot of his videos and I agree with many of the things he says in this video and I talk about that. So all I'm saying is before you go drop a comment down below, I think you should watch both of our videos and hopefully have a more well-rounded perspective, and I would rather have an actual conversation, because if you go in the comments, you just make some snarky comment, one, you're not changing anybody's mind, and then two, you're actually kind of making yourself look like an idiot. So just gonna leave it there. Let's get into the video.
Autotune. I'm gonna say right up front, I'm not anti-autotune.
Okay, I'm gonna say right up front, I'm not anti-autotune, but I'm gonna spend the next 14 and a half minutes talking about why I'm anti-autotune. Okay, that's kind of sarcastic. It's kind of a joke. First things first, if you've not watched this video, you should actually go watch the video. I do encourage you to watch this video because, frankly, from my perspective, I actually love conversation. I love dialogue. And so really first thing is you should go watch this video and then come take my pick at it. I'm not going to be saying I disagree with everything Rick says in this video. There are many things that I agree with in the video, but there are many things that he says that I think is actually doing a pretty significant disservice to people who want to produce music, and in basically telling them, essentially through this video, what he's saying is you should not be using autotune, even though he says, like, I think 3 different times, I'm not against autotune and it saved me a number of times, but the entire tone of the video, it really does come across as like you should not be using autotune and autotune is destructive. And he talks about autotune reducing the naturalness of a vocal, which I agree with to a degree. I'm going to actually show you real life examples in this video. What is pitch correction overdone? What is pitch correction actually done well? Because I agree, there are lots of examples you can point to in modern music, and it's actually very easy to point to lots of the examples that he uses in this video of pitch correction and autotune being overdone. There is no question, pitch correction and autotune can be overdone, and I think that he hits a lot of the nail on the head in the sense of, yes, there are a lot of producers who are being incredibly lazy about just not getting good takes, and this is something I talk about a lot. You should literally just go watch my channel. I've talked about this on my channel. Editing your vocals and editing pitch and editing anything related to audio and audio manipulation, it should be about making a great performance more polished. It should never be about fixing a crappy performance. Let's actually look at some of the stuff that he says in this video.
I was in the same session, I heard this song. Lenny Kravitz. Is that autotune? He says, yeah, I think that's autotune on those background vocals, those yas. I said, because that does not sound natural. Those yas, it sounds really weird. It sounds too perfectly in tune, and it makes it sound small. Listen.
I agree with this. So he talks about this example of the yeah background vocals and how they sound too perfect and they sound small. And he actually talks about, he sort of talks about why this is, but essentially the idea is that if your pitch is so perfect that actually what it does is it kind of takes away the realism. And this is also why when you have an orchestra, for example, this is why an orchestra of strings is going to sound so rich and warm. It actually is because there are all of these imperfections that are adding all of this tonal characteristic. One violinist is flat, one is a little short, one is right in the center, one's flat of that, one's this. And when you have 30 violinists playing together and they're all playing the same pitch, but it's slightly varied, it actually adds this very nice warmth and very wide sound. So he's spot on with this, that if you overtune and you tune it to that point to where it's very, very noticeable that you are using autotune or any tuning, because he talks about autotune in this video and it seems like he's knocking on autotune when really what it seems like he's doing is actually knocking on all pitch correction, and then he randomly throws in Melodyne, which in my opinion is a very different plugin. Substitute that for like Flex Pitch, for example, within Logic, which is a very different tool. So let me just say this, the difference between like autotune and flex pitch or Melodyne is that autotune is going to automatically correct the pitch, whereas plugins like Melodyne and plugins like flex pitch are not automatically going to do it. They're going to do it based on how you tell it to do it, and so you actually have 100% control over how much do you want to apply, how significant do you want this to be tuned, or how unsignificant do you want this to be tuned. I don't correct the pitch to 100% every single time, because if you set everything to 100%, it can actually sound a little unrealistic and unnatural. And so you do want to retain some of the realism. Let me just show you what this actually looks like inside of my DAW. So you can see here, I have this example vocal. I'll actually show you what this sounds like in a bit. I have Autotune on here. You can see it right here. I'll actually show you some stuff. But what I want to do first is turn on flex pitch and show you what flex pitch looks like. All right, so this is actually what flex pitch looks like. So you can see I sing this first pitch 11 cents sharp. This second pitch is 17, this other one here 17 sharp. You can see I kind of go up on the pitch at the end of this note, but you can see all of these, the kind of the graph in the middle here, these little lines, that's actually showing the vibrato of that pitch. We have all of these different nodes that you can control various different things. So I could take the vibrato and turn the vibrato down, okay? Now, if you open up Autotune, for example, you can see here what he's actually showing you is the graphed version of Autotune. But a lot of times when producers are using Autotune, they are literally using the auto version, which is going to literally just automatically tune based on whatever you set it to. You could set it to chromatic, you could set it to a specific key. So like for me, I'm in C major in this particular key. But some of the things that I've noticed in his video, let's actually skip ahead to where he uses Autotune. So he's in the graph mode, which is good because there's more control in the graph mode. But look at his retune speed. It is set to 0, which is the most unnatural mode. So in a way, it's like, Rick, you're talking about this being used improperly, but it almost seems like you are intentionally showing the worst case instead of actually showing like how can you actually use this in a way that is beneficial. And so I think that Rick is actually doing a pretty significant disservice to people in making you think that Autotune, this is just how it sounds. That's not correct. That is not how it just sounds. So let me show you what this vocal sounds like without any pitch correction. I just did this literally right before rolling the camera. Words could never be enough to make you see. Okay, so for me personally, like I would probably want to do more takes. Okay, so like I'm obviously working with a take that is pretty quick. I think I did like 3 or 4 takes of this thing and just picked this one. But what I want to talk about here in just a second is actually what, in my opinion, makes a great performance, because pitch is actually like this much of what makes a great performance. So let's throw on some Autotune here. So if you were just to, let me actually redo this. Let me turn off Autotune. I'm going to add Autotune after the fact, okay? So I'm going to have it in its just most standard mode. So if I just open Autotune, retune speed is set to 20. So literally, he had to have set the retune speed on his plugin to 0. Like he would have actually had to do that, because if you just open up the Autotune, unless he has this just parameter automatically set to 0, he would have had to have set that retune speed to 0, which is not natural. The retune speed is how much and how fast is it going to start doing this. Okay, so let's just do it completely what it sounds like, and then I'm actually going to show you some of the controls that are going to change the sound. So here we go. Words could never be. Okay, so obviously you can really hear that, right? But notice that even though you can hear it, it's not ridiculous. It's not like this. Ready? So this is actually what Rick did. He had it set to 0. This is what it would sound like with retune speed to 0. Words could never be. Hello, night and day difference. And so this is where I'm a little frustrated, because this seems a little bit, it seems like you're just showing people the worst case scenario rather than actually saying, hey, here's how it's used improperly, and here's how you can actually use it properly in a way that is tasteful. Okay, so let's actually do this in a way that's tasteful. So let's set the retune speed much slower to like 45. Input type, I am a tenor. So that's the first thing. It's going to change how this responds. Key, we are in the key of C, but this is not a chromatic scale, it's major. So let's set this to a C major scale. That's the only change we're going to make. We change the retune speed, change it to only C major. Oh, no, that's incorrect. So we're in the key of D. I forgot to transpose it. So we're in the key of D. Words could never be. Okay, so you're hearing it more because I have now said only use D major. But this humanize mode, let's turn humanize halfway up and see what this does. Words could never be. Let's slow the retune speed down even more and add more humanize. Words could never be. I hope you can hear the difference. That is a very significant difference. So I've slowed the retune speed down quite a bit, and I've increased the humanize on this. Now, you might not like that still. That's fine. You don't have to like it. But what I'm trying to say is that there are all sorts of different shades and colors of how you can use this. Okay, so let's stop talking about Autotune for a second. Let's just talk about any regular pitch correction. Let's talk about flex pitch. Okay, so let's turn on flex. Let's actually go into here and do scale quantize, D major, So I'm going to go in here, set all the perfect pitch. I'm going to grab everything and I'm going to quantize it. So I now have this whole thing completely pitch corrected. I didn't touch anything other than just saying, I only want this to be in D major. Let's see how this sounds. Words could never be. Let's just do that much. Let's just do this little portion. Words could never be. Let's just go ahead and set back all to original pitch. Now, again, we have so much control over this. So that's the first thing. I would change that so it's an E. Change that. Change that down because I don't want that pitch to go. Words could never be. You know what I'm going to do? How about I do this? How about I duplicate this and have one that is going to be my tuned vocal, and I'm going to do this one as my untuned vocal. So I'm going to turn off flex pitch on this one, and I'm going to have flex pitch on this one. So this one's my tuned, and we're going to go back and forth. Words. So like that right there, yeah, it's sounding a little tuned. That's kind of like how it actually sounds. Yeah, that's just kind of how it sounded. So like that transition into that note. So I would personally probably just want to redo that take. That's an example of where I'd say, you know what, let's just do that again. Let's get that first start of the words. Let's get that right. Words could never be. So like right here, I would just grab that and just put it up. Could never be. Bring that down. But what is happening is I am actually changing the aggregate of pitch. I am not changing this whole thing to be 100% pitch, because that would actually be if I set the vibrato to 0 is when you would start getting that extremely like weird sounding artifact of like the heavily pitched, heavily processed sound. All I'm doing is I'm telling flex pitch, I want the average of this note to be perfect. But you can see the lines in here. The lines in here, like right there at the tail end of this, is vibrato, which means I am no longer singing that in pitch. It's actually out of pitch. But this is still a pitch correction software. Could never be enough. So let's go ahead. So like that right there, you can see, even though I just set this to perfect pitch, I'm actually still sharp on this. And here's how I can show you. I can cut this note, and you can now see that I'm actually sharp. If I cut that note, it's going to be even more. So I'm actually seeing that 24 cent sharp. Now we could go in and get really surgical with this, like that. Okay, you might like that, you might not like that. The other thing we could do is just cut kind of where the main difference starts happening, fix that, and then I can go and slightly change the vibrato. What do you know? That actually sounds pretty natural. So one of the things Rick says in this video is he says this.
Without any type of pitch bends like that, Autotune would sound weird. Now,
so he says any type of pitch bend like that, Autotune would sound weird. But again, okay, so Rick, are we talking about Autotune specifically? Because he randomly threw out Melodyne, so now I'm confused. Are we talking just pitch correction, or are we talking Autotune? Because really what I'm getting as a viewer of this video is I'm getting that you are no longer just talking about Autotune. You are actually talking about pitch correction in general, Full Sail, all pitch correction plugins. Because at first I was thinking, I think he might just be talking about Autotune specifically, but then he randomly drops in Melodyne. So he says you can't do that. Actually, yes, you can. Let me show you. Now this is a pitch bend going up. Check this out. And I just literally, watch this. I'm gonna change this pitch to be 100% accurate on the fine pitch. So in other words, it's accurate now, okay? It's not the original pitch. I have officially changed it. Listen to this. To make you... That sounds great. Like, so I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are you talking about? So again, I think the thing that's relatively frustrating for me as a producer and someone that actually teaches producers like how to produce music, not only through this channel, but through my program, is that one, I agree that first of all, you should be striving for a great performance. And I agree that a lot of producers are incredibly lazy about getting good performance. Number two, I agree that pitch correction is about fixing a already good performance to make it even better, okay? Just to elevate the performance as a whole. The next thing he talks about is he starts going into all these examples of all these phenomenal singers, you know, Freddie Mercury and stuff like that. But think of all of the singers that would have no shot of ever having a career as an artist or being able to have their music out there because it's simply not good enough to raise to that point of where modern music is today in terms of pitch. You might not like that. You might think that's messed up. You might whatever. Whether you think that or not, But if I take one of my performances and it is not edited, and if the pitch is not corrected, at least to a point of where it is sounding more in the ballpark, and he talks about like the ballpark, I agree with that 100%, that there is a ballpark of pitch instead of like pitches like not one specific thing. There's a ballpark of good pitch. But the thing is that like my performances wouldn't be good enough to make a mark. And does that mean that I should just no longer have that ability? Should I just no longer have the ability to make music and put my music out there just because, oh, well, I guess I can't do that without any sort of pitch correction, so you should give up. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're watching Rick's video and you're thinking, well, man, that just seems like to be a huge deterrent for people to make music, I kind of agree. Like, it kind of seems like Rick is just like putting a really big roadblock in the way and saying, hey, like, unless you are at like this top 0.00001% of people who can actually come in the studio and sing a freaking phenomenal performance, then like, sucks to suck, too bad. Too bad. That seems pretty messed up to me. I know so many singers who have come into the studio and sang, and their voices are incredible, but even with their voices being incredible, the pitch still needs pitch correction. So that kind of brings me to the point of what I said was that pitch is not the most important part of a performance. There are so many other aspects of what makes a great performance. There's pitch, there is the rhythmic element of performance, which I think rhythm is actually more important than pitch. Then there's the expressive element and the human element. And he's talking about Autotune robbing people of the human element. And again, look, Rick, if you are using a 0 retune speed and if you are using Autotune to the absolute extreme, I agree. Like, it's going to rob you of that performance. But I've literally just demonstrated here that you can actually apply some relatively basic and very simple pitch correction to a vocal, and it will still sound very natural. It retains the natural quality of my voice. But I have actually fixed the pitch on this performance. And look, it's like you can like it, you can hate it, you can have whatever opinion you have. But I do not know a single professional producer who is like actually in the industry who does not use pitch correction. It's just a reality. Now, some of those producers are going to go over the top, and I think, hey, you should not go over the top like that. Other producers are not going to go over the top. I would like to put myself in that category of I want to use it tastefully, and I want to use it in a way that is actually going to be good. I think that the whole thing with Rick's video is for young, aspiring producers. Young people, not even just young people, just people in general, people that are watching my videos, people that are watching his videos who are saying, I want to make music, I want to produce music. You're going to watch this particular video, and it is such a deterrent. It's a deterrent. In watching that video, you are walking away with a perspective that is incomplete. That is my problem with this video. My problem with this video is it is an incomplete perspective. Having seen what I've done here in my session, having shown you the example within my DAW here, guess what? You can agree with me or you can disagree with me. I have no problem if you disagree with me. If you still think I still agree with Rick, I have no problem with that. You can agree with Rick. That's the beauty of the world that we live in. You can have your opinion. Rick has his opinion. I have my opinion. The whole thing here should not be don't use Autotune unless it's like worst case scenario. That is not what it should be. What it should be is get a great performance and then utilize pitch correction to elevate that performance and make it what it's supposed to be. And it's getting it to that final little 5%. Little 5%. It's actually sad because Rick has so much influence, and just you're not telling the whole story. So all of this to say, I would have loved for Rick to have done a more complete analysis of how to utilize pitch correction in a way that is actually useful. Obviously, that's basically what I've done in this video. So with that said, we'll wrap it up. We'll see you in the next one.